Connor Blake liked to believe he had seen enough strange things in his career to be unshockable, but the ruins on Varel 9 were testing that confidence. The morning began with him kneeling in the dust, arguing with his assistant drone, Milo, about whether sand counted as a life-threatening hazard. Milo insisted no. Connor insisted yes, especially when it somehow found its way into his underwear. The sun was barely over the horizon. The wind smelled like old metal, and the ruins hummed softly beneath the surface, as if remembering a 1,000-year-old headache. Another normal day, he told himself. Quiet, predictable, blessedly free of exploding starships or bureaucratic lectures. He was halfway through measuring a cracked star map when the ground vibrated. Milo chirped that this was statistically unlikely to be an earthquake, which was Milo speak for something bad was about to happen. Connor squinted up at the sky just as a ripple shimmered above him. A cloaked ship deactivated its veil, revealing a sleek vessel that absolutely did not belong anywhere near his peaceful archaeological dig. The ship descended with slow, deliberate grace, kicking up a halo of sand that immediately found its way into Connor's boots. He cursed softly. Milo recorded the profanity for linguistic analysis, which earned the drone a flick. The ship's ramp lowered. Connor's security team tried to form a defensive perimeter, which would have been impressive if they hadn't all tripped over the same rock. Out of the descending dust walked a woman, tall, light-skinned, blonde hair that shimmered like it had its own power source, and long, elegant ears rising slightly from the sides of her head. She moved like someone who had never once worried about paperwork, deadlines, or tripping over rocks. Her eyes locked onto him immediately, bypassing the bumbling security like they were mildly decorative furniture. Connor felt his throat tighten. Milo asked if he needed medical assistance. Connor whispered no, just a moment to process the incoming disaster. The woman approached until she stood only a meter away. Her presence was so focused that even the wind seemed to pause respectfully. She looked at him as though memorizing every line of his face, every breath. Then she leaned closer, her voice low and soft like a secret that had waited too long. I've been searching for you for years. Human. Connor froze. Not metaphorically, literally. Milo detected a temporary paralysis response in the subject, which was the drone's polite way of saying Connor had short-circuited. His brain sprinted to catch up. He was fairly certain he had never met a stunning alien woman with royal posture in his life. He was even more certain he would remember someone with ears like that. He managed, eloquent as ever. Do you need directions? Her expression softened. Sadness, relief, maybe even disbelief woven together. Connor Blake, she whispered. You don't remember me. He opened his mouth to reply, but nothing intelligent emerged. She stepped past him into the ruins, as though she had been there 100 times before. Connor hurried after her, nearly tripping over Milo. The air inside the ancient chamber was cooler, carrying a faint electric hum from machinery that had no business still functioning after millennia. The star maps etched into the stone walls glowed faintly as she passed, reacting to her presence in ways they had certainly never reacted to his. She stopped in the center of the chamber. Connor watched her trace her fingers across a carved energy conduit, her movements tender, almost reverent. When she turned back to him, her eyes held the weight of entire galaxies. 12 years ago, she said, a ship exploded above the Delthar moon. A distress pod was launched. Only one child survived. Connor felt a slow chill crawl across his spine. He remembered that mission, the unsanctioned detour, the burning pod, the tiny figure inside it, the smoke, the panic, the desperate moment before the explosion swallowed the wreckage. He remembered lifting the child, running, shouting into static-filled comms. He remembered turning her over to emergency medics, and then being told to forget the whole thing had ever happened. Classified, sealed, buried. He had never known what happened to her. The woman stepped closer. You pulled me from the fire. You saved my life. And then you vanished. Connor blinked rapidly, stunned. Milo advised deep breathing, which Connor ignored. Wait. You? You were that kid? But you're a princess now? I was then too, she said dryly. Just smaller. He rubbed his temples. And you've been looking for me? For 12 years? Why? I didn't do anything special. Her voice softened. You risked everything for someone you didn't know. No reward, no report, no glory. You saved me because it was right. Connor tried to deflect with a joke about the terrible state of her escape pod maintenance, but she didn't smile. Instead, she stepped even closer, and he realized she wasn't just recalling a childhood memory. She had carried that moment with her like a hidden star. Before he could speak, alarms blared above them. Milo screeched something about multiple unidentified signatures descending fast. Thalira's, because she finally gave her name, expression hardened instantly. The softness vanished, replaced by a warrior's poise sharpened by years of training. "They found me," she whispered. Connor's stomach dropped. "Who found you?" "The ones who tried to kill me as a child." She reached for his hand, gripping it with surprising strength. "And they will not hesitate to kill you too." Connor stared at her, then at the ceiling shaking with distant impacts. "Great," he muttered. "I just wanted a quiet day with some broken pottery." She pulled him toward the deeper tunnels. "Stay close." Milo zipped frantically after them. "Statistically, your odds of survival have dropped to—" "Milo, shut up!" Connor yelled. Blaster fire ripped through the entrance behind them, lighting the ancient stone with deadly sparks. Thalira's grip tightened, her presence steady despite the chaos. And in that moment, running through ancient corridors with a princess who had crossed the stars to find him, Connor realized one thing with absolute clarity. His quiet life was very, very over. Blaster fire echoed through the ruins, each shot ricocheting across the ancient stone like an angry metallic bee. Connor ran after Thalira, trying not to trip over his own feet, or Milo, who was zigzagging so frantically he looked like he was reenacting a flight path drawn by a toddler. The air shimmered with pulsing energy as dust fell in thin curtains from the ceiling. Connor yelled for Milo to turn off his danger announcements. The drone announced they were increasing in severity, which was not the reassuring update he'd hoped for. Thalira's grip stayed firm on his wrist as she guided him deeper into the ruins. Her movements were sharp, practiced, full of the quiet confidence of someone who had escaped assassins before. Connor wondered briefly if he should be impressed or terrified. He settled on both. "So," he gasped between breaths, "just to clarify, are they trying to kill you, me, or is it more of a buy one, get one free situation?" "Their priority is me," she said without turning, "but killing you would be convenient." "Great. I always wanted to be someone's convenience." She glanced back with the smallest flicker of amusement before pulling him through a narrow passage lit by glowing glyphs embedded in the stone. The walls vibrated with an ancient energy, humming softly as if aware they were sheltering fugitives. Connor brushed one of the symbols and received a mild shock that made Milo beep in alarm. Thalira stopped suddenly and pressed her palm against a circular engraving. The wall hissed open to reveal a chamber that looked untouched for centuries. Floating holographic star maps flickered in the air, rotating slowly like galaxies caught in amber. Connor forgot the blaster fire for a moment. "Wow," he breathed. "This place is incredible." "It is older than my kingdom," Thalira said softly. "My ancestors believed these ruins held secrets of the first explorers." Connor approached a projection of a spiral galaxy. Milo scanned it and declared it 574% inaccurate, which was impressive considering Milo had no idea how galaxies worked. Connor nudged him away before Thalira mistook the drone's commentary as an insult to her heritage. The princess walked to a stone console covered in alien script. The symbols reacted to her presence, glowing brighter. Connor rubbed the back of his neck. "So these ruins, why do they keep lighting up when you touch stuff? Because when I touch them, they try to electrocute me." "They recognize my energy signature," she said, then added with a straight face. "And they recognize that you do not." "Ah, great. Even ancient rocks have standards." Before she could reply, a tremor shook the chamber. A section of the wall exploded inward as armored assassins cloaked in distortion fields stepped through the smoke. Connor yelped, Milo let out a shrill alarm, and Thalira moved faster than logic allowed. She activated a curved energy blade from a bracer on her wrist, its silver arc slicing through the air with a resonant hum. Connor ducked behind a pillar, covering his head as sparks flew. "Just saying," he muttered. "This was not in the job description." Thalira's movements were fluid yet controlled, balancing elegance and lethal precision. She deflected a bolt, spun, and struck one of her attackers with a force that sent him crashing into a holographic star cluster, scattering the projection into chaotic sparks. Connor peeked out just long enough to see two more assassins advancing toward him. "Nope, nope, absolutely not," he said, scrambling away. He grabbed a loose stone tablet, which immediately crumbled into ancient dust. He threw the dust anyway, achieving nothing except making the assassins mildly confused about whether he was performing some obscure ritual. Milo launched himself forward, firing a tiny stun beam that barely tickled the enemy. "Milo," Connor hissed, "you are not a weapon." Correction, Milo said proudly. I am a moderately successful distraction. Connor didn't have time to argue. One assassin lunged. Connor ducked instinctively and tripped over a fallen pedestal, sending both himself and the assassin tumbling down a slope passage. They rolled until they crashed into another chamber, Connor landing on something painfully sharp. He groaned and shoved the unconscious assassin off him. Thalera slid down after him a moment later, landing with far more grace. She extended a hand. You are unharmed? Connor waved a finger in a vague circle. Define unharmed. Emotionally? No. Physically? Also no. She actually smiled this time. A small, genuine curve of her lips that made him forget the immediate danger. Her ears flicked slightly, a gesture he interpreted as amusement. You survived the fall. That is what matters. Thrilled to be useful, he said, brushing dust from his clothes as another explosion rocked the ruins above them. Thalera's expression shifted back to seriousness. We cannot stay. There is something I still must show you. Something that will explain why my enemies follow me, and why I needed to find you. Connor felt a mixture of dread and curiosity tighten in his chest. Please don't say it's another room full of booby-trapped rocks. It is not, she said, but it may change everything you believe about your past. He swallowed hard. Okay, great. Love that. Let's go before more assassins try to turn me into a decorative rug. She nodded, leading him down a long tunnel illuminated by ancient blue lights that flickered awake as they approached. Milo floated behind them, humming nervously. Connor tried to steady his breathing. He had arrived on this planet expecting artifacts, dust, and maybe a sprained ankle. Not assassins, not ancient ruins recognizing alien royalty. And definitely not a princess who looked at him like he was the missing piece of a story she'd been living her whole life. As they descended deeper, the humming walls grew louder, as if whispering secrets older than both their worlds. Thalera slowed, her voice soft but filled with certainty. There is more you must remember, she said, and more I must tell you. But first, you must see where our destinies truly began. Connor looked ahead into the glowing darkness and exhaled slowly. Milo, he muttered, remind me never to complain about paperwork again. I will mark it as a temporary resolution, Milo replied, and together the three of them stepped into the unknown. The tunnel sloped downward until the air grew cooler, denser, almost metallic on Connor's tongue. Strange symbols pulsed gently along the walls like a heartbeat, illuminating their path in soft waves of blue and silver. Connor tried very hard not to think about how many life-threatening situations he'd already experienced today. He counted at least 4, not including Milo's comment earlier about their statistically low survival chances, which felt like a personal attack. Thalera walked ahead with steady, measured steps, her long ears angled slightly as if listening to something beneath the rumble of the ruins. Connor followed closely, pretending he wasn't winded despite the fact that she moved with the effortless grace of someone genetically designed for heroic running sequences. He, on the other hand, was a human with knees that clicked when he climbed stairs too fast. Are we almost there? He asked, voice echoing faintly. Yes, Thalera said without looking back. That's fantastic. Great. Wonderful. If this ends in another ambush, I'm going to file a complaint with the universe. Milo drifted beside him. Please specify department, Galactic Administration or Existential Oversight. Connor sighed. Milo, buddy, I was being sarcastic. Understood. Filing sarcasm report. Thalera paused at a massive archway etched with spiraling patterns. A soft hum filled the air, growing louder as she approached. Connor felt the hairs on his arms rise. The temperature dropped another degree. Thalera placed her palm gently on the carved surface, and a ripple of light spread outward. The archway opened like a blooming flower, revealing a circular chamber filled with floating crystals and a swirling projection at its center. The projection looked like a star map, but unlike the others they'd passed, this one shifted constantly, rearranging itself in real time. Planets shimmered, nebulae drifted, entire systems flickered as though alive. Connor stepped forward, mesmerized. I've seen interactive maps, but this is something else. Thalera nodded. This chamber predates every known star empire. My ancestors discovered it during their first expansions. Only a handful of people have ever been allowed inside. Well, Connor said, I am honored to be among the chosen few. Although I have the distinct feeling I'm here because I'm about to learn something terrifying. You are, she said without hesitation. He winced. Great. Fantastic. Just what I hoped to hear. She gestured toward the star map, and one of the glowing clusters expanded until it filled the center of the room. A recording flickered to life. Ghostly holographic figures speaking in a language older than any Connor knew. Their long ears resembled Thalira's, though their features were sharper, their clothing ceremonial. This, Thalira said, is the first refuge. The place where surviving royal children were hidden during wars throughout our history. Only the highest-ranking houses knew its coordinates. And you were sent here? Connor asked. She shook her head. No, but my mother was preparing to. When the attack happened 12 years ago, she tried to activate the emergency protocol. But the enemy intercepted us before the jump. The escape pod you found was meant to take me here. Her expression tightened. But they sabotaged it. They expected the explosion to finish me. Connor felt his stomach twist. I didn't know. They told me the incident was classified. They didn't say anything about royal conspiracies or massacres. You were not supposed to know, she said gently. But you still acted. Without orders? Without hesitation? He rubbed the back of his neck. I was just trying to save a kid. You saved a princess, she corrected softly. And in doing so, you became part of a secret that even my family was not certain had survived. Before Connor could respond, the star map shifted again. This time it highlighted a planetary system he recognized instantly. His own. Earth's sun glowed at the center, surrounded by familiar orbits. His breath caught. Why is my home system on your ancient map? He asked. Thalira stepped beside him, her voice low. Because long before our recorded alliances began, our explorers made contact with your world. They found your species young, unorganized, unpredictable, and resilient. They predicted that humans would one day shape galactic history. She pointed toward an inscription. This chamber contains prophecies, some poetic, some dangerously accurate. Connor blinked. Prophecies? About humans? Yes, and one of them, she hesitated, speaks of a child rescued by a wanderer from the blue star? He stared at her. That sounds suspiciously like me. She nodded. It does. Okay, he said, pinching the bridge of his nose. Just to recap, ancient aliens knew about humans, believed we'd be important, and left vague fortune cookie warnings for future generations? That is an oversimplification. And somehow I'm involved? Yes. And assassins are trying to kill you because of this prophecy? They fear what I represent, and what you represent. Connor groaned. Brilliant. I didn't even ask for a prophecy. I just wanted to look at old rocks. Milo beeped. Correction. You wanted to look at old rocks and complain about paperwork. Connor glared. Not helping. Thalira stepped closer, her expression softened by something he almost recognized as vulnerability. I brought you here because you deserve to know the truth, because you are already part of this, and because I needed you to see that our meeting was not chance. He swallowed hard, trying not to look overwhelmed. So what happens now? Do the ancient prophecies say anything else? Maybe something about us not dying in the next hour? Before she could answer, the chamber lights flickered violently. The star map distorted. Milo screeched an alert. They found us again, Thalira whispered. We must leave, now. Connor groaned as the walls trembled. Perfect timing, because I was starting to enjoy understanding my own destiny. Thalira grabbed his hand once more, pulling him toward another exit just as the ceiling cracked and masked figures dropped into the chamber. Connor yelled as he sprinted after her. Next time I save someone, remind me to ask if they come with cosmic baggage. Milo whirred anxiously behind them. Adding note to memory, avoid rescuing royalty. With assassins closing in, the ancient chamber collapsing, and a prophecy he definitely wasn't qualified for hanging over his head, Connor had one persistent thought. He should have taken that teaching job on Luna. The moment the assassins dropped into the chamber, everything erupted into motion. Shouting, blaster fire, the groaning ache of ancient machinery waking in protest. Connor didn't wait to see which threat was closest. He simply ran, because that was quickly becoming his primary survival skill. Thalira pulled him through a narrow side passage just as a shock wave hurled crystal shards across the floor. Milo zipped behind them, screaming calculations that Connor absolutely did not want to hear. Door closing in 3 seconds, Milo shrieked. Thalira spun, slammed her palm onto a glowing panel, and the crystalline doorway sealed shut with a layered hum. The final assassin dove forward and got stuck halfway, his upper body wedged in the doorway. He glared at Connor. Connor glared back. Then the door finished sealing, launching the assassin backward into the collapsing chamber. Connor exhaled shakily. Please tell me all royal enemies are that bad at timing. Thalira shook her head. Unfortunately, no. Fantastic. Excellent. Exactly what I wanted to hear. They kept moving down the long corridor. This passage was different, cleaner, smoother, lit by soft blue veins of energy that pulsed like living circuits. The hum of ancient tech echoed under their feet. Connor glanced around, running his hand along the cool walls. You ever wonder how old this place really is? I mean, it feels older than the oldest museum exhibit I've ever broken by accident. You broke museum exhibits? She asked. It was one time. Technically 3. But one was Milo's fault. Milo beeped defensively. Incorrect. My diagnostics reveal human clumsiness was the primary factor. Thalira's lips curved faintly despite the tension. You two are unusual. Connor frowned. Unusual good or unusual problematic? Both, she said, and surprisingly, Connor found himself okay with that. Ahead, the corridor opened into a wide atrium supported by enormous pillars wrapped in glowing filament. Holographic glyphs swirled across the ceiling, forming shifting constellations. A deep thrumming vibrated through the floor. Steady, rhythmic, almost like mechanical breathing. Thalira stepped forward with reverence. We're close. The heart chamber should be just beyond. The heart chamber? Connor said. Why does everything here sound like it belongs in a cryptic warning from a cursed artifact? Because my ancestors were dramatic, she said simply. Before he could respond, a chorus of metallic footsteps echoed from behind. Connor's heart jumped. Milo floated upward, projecting emergency alerts in bright red letters. Pursuers detected. Multiple life signatures approaching fast. Of course they are, Connor snapped. I swear these ruins are like a maze built by someone with a grudge. Thalira grabbed his arm and pointed toward a slanted platform embedded into the floor. At first, Connor thought it was just a slab of metal, but then the whole thing lit up with a sudden burst of holographic blue. Lines of energy formed a lattice around it. It's a grav lift, she said. Stand on it. I'm sorry, what? She stepped onto the platform. It floated a few centimeters off the ground. Then she held out her hand. Connor, trust me. He took her hand because he absolutely had no better ideas. Milo hopped on last, shaking like a terrified toaster. The platform pulsed once, humming. Is it supposed to? The lift launched them upward like a slingshot. Connor screamed the entire time. Wind rushed past them as the grav lift shot through a vertical tunnel, illuminated by streaks of bright energy. Connor clutched the edge until his knuckles turned white. Thalira stood balanced and calm, her hair and long ears fluttering in the rushing air. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Connor shouted. A little, she admitted. They came to a sudden, stomach-lurching stop at another platform high above the atrium. Connor staggered off, his legs wobbling. Great. Amazing. Love that. Let's never do it again. Milo performed a proud little spin. I am logging your emotional instability. Please don't. Thalira led them into another chamber, this one circular, lined with ancient machinery built into the walls. At its center floated a large crystalline sphere, suspended above a pedestal by streams of energy. It pulsed gently, illuminating the room in soft blue waves. The core, Thalira whispered. This is what the traitors wanted to suppress. Connor approached cautiously. The air around the sphere tingled, buzzing with static. What does it do? It remembers, she said. Everything. Every lineage. Every royal child. Every prophecy. Every moment this sanctuary has witnessed. She paused, then added quietly, including the day I should have been brought here. She placed her palm on the pedestal. The sphere brightened instantly, reacting to her presence. Threads of light unfolded like woven ribbons, forming images, blurry at first, then clearer. Connor saw a starship engulfed in flames, a small escape pod spiraling away, a tiny blonde-haired girl reaching through glass, and a blurred figure, a man, sprinting through smoke to pull her out. Connor swallowed. That's, me. Thalira nodded. This chamber confirms what my family could only speculate. You were not just a rescuer, Connor. You were part of a prophecy older than both our worlds. Connor shook his head. But I didn't even know. You weren't supposed to, she said softly. Prophecies are seldom kind enough to explain themselves. Before he could respond, the chamber lights dimmed. The hum turned sharp, urgent. Milo flashed red. Warning, hostiles breaching upper entry point. Connor groaned. These guys need a hobby. Thalira closed her hand around his. Connor, listen to me. Once we take the Corps' record, we'll have proof of their crimes, proof strong enough to expose them. But we must escape with it. He glanced at the swirling sphere. How do we take it? She pulled a small crystalline device from her belt. We imprint it. Okay, cool, great, do it fast. As she held the device to the core, beams of light arced into it. The assassin's footsteps grew louder. Connor positioned himself between the Lyra and the incoming threat, holding a broken metal rod he found earlier. Milo whispered, "That is not a weapon." "It is if I believe in myself," Connor said grimly. The chamber doors shook, then burst inward. Thalara grabbed the now glowing device, clutching it tightly. "The imprint is complete." Connor grabbed her hand. "Then let's move before these guys turn me into a Connor-flavored pancake." They sprinted toward a side exit as masked assassins poured into the chamber. Energy bolts whizzed past. Milo unleashed a blinding flash that bought them precious seconds. And as they fled deeper into the unknown passage, Connor realized something unsettling. He wasn't just running for survival anymore. He was running toward a truth that had been waiting for both of them for years. Connor had no idea where the tunnel was taking them, only that it was taking them fast. Thalara ran with long, fluid strides, her hand gripping his tightly as though she feared he'd vanish if she let go. Milo darted ahead, projecting tiny cones of light that flickered nervously with every vibration of the ancient structure. Behind them, distant shouts and blaster fire echoed like angry thunder. Connor tried not to think about how many assassins were chasing them, or how heavily armed they were, or how badly he was wheezing. "Thalara," he gasped. "Fun fact, humans are not built for continuous sprinting through collapsing temples." She glanced at him, a spark of amusement in her eyes. "You are doing better than expected." "Wow," he said between breaths. "A glowing review." The tunnel curved sharply and opened into a cavern where massive machinery hummed beneath layers of dust. Ancient gears spun lazily, as though still dreaming of the era they once served. Blue conduits ran through the floor and walls like veins, pulsing with energy older than most civilizations. Milo hovered above one of the conduits. "I detect a transit system. Probability of still functioning, 5%. Connor pointed. 5% is higher than the chances of me surviving another foot chase. Thalara studied the machinery, then pressed her hand to a control node. To Connor's shock, the conduits ignited, surging with bright currents that spiraled across the chamber. A sleek transport platform rose from the floor, long, narrow, and humming softly like a creature waking from a long sleep. "It still works," she whispered. "Well," Connor said, stepping onto it, "that's a first for today." The platform shuddered, then glided forward along an invisible track at increasing speed. Connor stumbled, but managed to stay upright, clinging to one of the glowing rails. Thalara stood with practiced balance. Milo hovered smugly. The walls blurred as they raced through a wide tubular passage illuminated by shifting glyphs. Connor leaned closer to Thalara, lowering his voice. "You sure this thing knows where it's going? Because I definitely don't." "It leads to the catacombs beneath the sanctuary," she said. "There should be an exit to the surface." "Should be," he repeated. "Fantastic. So reassuring." Milo beeped. "Warning, multiple hostile signatures following along secondary tunnels." "Of course they are," Connor groaned. "These people really need hobbies." The transport shot through an intersection, just as another platform carrying assassins slammed into view on a parallel track. Connor flinched. Thalara reacted instantly, pulling him down as a bolt of crimson energy sliced the space where his head had been. The assassins accelerated, drawing alongside them. Their mass reflected the rushing lights, their energy blades crackling. One of them leapt onto Connor's platform with inhuman agility. Connor screamed. Milo screamed louder. Thalara launched herself forward, intercepting the assassin with a sweeping kick that sent him sprawling dangerously close to the edge. Connor, desperate, did the only thing he could think of. He grabbed a loose conduit pipe and whacked the assassin on the helmet. The assassin toppled off the platform. Connor blinked. "I can't believe that worked." Thalara raised an eyebrow. "Your combat style is unconventional." "Thank you," he said proudly. "I think." Their victory lasted all of 4 seconds. Another assassin jumped onto the rear of the platform, blade glowing ominously. Thalara spun toward him, but the platform lurched violently as ancient gears shrieked in protest. Connor, thrown off balance, crashed into Thalara, and the two of them tumbled to the floor in a tangle of limbs. Milo, floating overhead, issued helpful commentary. "Your coordination score has dropped significantly." Connor shouted, "Milo, I swear." The assassin advanced, blade raised. Thalara rolled, pulling Connor with her. The blade slashed the air between them, leaving a glowing trail. Connor kicked wildly, managing to knock the assassin's foot off the rail. Thalira seized the moment, delivering a precise strike that sent the attacker hurtling off the side and into the tunnel abyss. The platform steadied. Connor lay on the floor, panting, staring at the ceiling. "I miss paperwork." "That is a sign of distress," Milo replied. Thalira extended a hand to help him up. "We are almost there." He took her hand, pulling himself to his feet. Their fingers lingered for a moment, both of them breathless, though only one from exertion. The tunnel expanded into a wide chamber where the platform began to slow. Ahead, a massive circular gate pulsed with soft white light. The air smelled fresher, cooler, like unfiltered sky. Connor felt a spark of hope. "The exit," Thalira said. "We just need to cross." Her sentence was cut off by a deafening boom. The transport platform jerked violently as something exploded behind them. Connor and Thalira spun around. The assassins had activated a secondary track junction. A massive armored skimmer barreled toward them, glowing with hostile intent and far too much weaponry. Connor's hope evaporated. "Nope, absolutely not. I refuse to be run over by a giant enemy hoverplow." The gate ahead flickered, reacting to the incoming energy signatures. Thalira grabbed his shoulders. "When the platform reaches the gate, jump through it." "What about you?" "I will be right behind you." "I don't like this plan." "It is the only plan." The platform accelerated sharply toward the gate as the armored skimmer closed in from behind. Energy blasts scorched the tunnel around them. Milo emitted high-pitched distress beeps. Connor clutched Thalira's hand. "Please tell me this gate doesn't lead into a bottomless pit." "It leads outside," she said. "Probably." "Probably?" Before he could protest further, the platform shot directly into the glowing circle. Connor shouted something unintelligible. Milo shrieked, and Thalira pulled him forward as they plunged through the portal in a blinding burst of light. Connor felt weightless for a heartbeat. Then gravity returned with a violent thud. They tumbled across rocky ground beneath a blazing sky, dust swirling around them. Connor groaned and sat up. "Okay," he rasped, "just once. I would like an exit that doesn't feel like being thrown out of a moving vehicle." Thalira pushed herself upright, brushing dust from her clothes. "We're safe, for the moment." Milo scanned the area. "Correction, temporarily safe." Connor glanced at Thalira, breathing hard but alive, her fingers brushing the device containing the core's imprint. He exhaled slowly. "So, what now?" Thalira looked toward the distant horizon, jaw set with resolve. "Now," she said, "we find a way off this world. And then, we finish what began 12 years ago." The world they stumbled into was nothing like the dusty excavation site they'd left behind. Jagged cliffs rose on either side, glowing faintly with veins of bioluminescent minerals that pulsed in slow, hypnotic patterns. Strange crystalline flowers swayed on the windless plain, emitting soft tones like distant chimes. Connor blinked a few times, uncertain if his concussion was finally creating auditory hallucinations. Milo hovered above him, scanning frantically. "We have emerged in an uncharted region of the sanctuary's outer zone. Atmospheric conditions stable. Threat level, unpredictable." Connor groaned as he stood. "Great. The air won't kill us. Everything else will." Thalira stepped forward, her hair catching the soft light from the luminous cliffs. Her long ears twitched slightly as if listening to something hidden in the terrain. She moved with cautious purpose, her gaze sweeping the horizon. She still held the crystalline device containing the imprinted core, gripping it like a fragile lifeline. Connor rubbed his wrists. "So, any idea where we are?" "Yes," she said, studying the formations. "These cliffs mark the border of the outer ring. There should be a hidden transport node nearby." She paused, then added, "If time has not destroyed it." "Your confidence keeps me going," Connor muttered. As they walked, Connor tried to ignore the faint humming coming from the flowers. Each time he passed one, it chimed like it was greeting him, or mocking him. Milo floated closer to one, scanned it, and immediately backed away. "Warning, the flora is emitting mild neuro-linguistic resonance. Avoid prolonged exposure." Connor stepped back. "The flowers can talk to my brain?" "In a manner of speaking," Milo said. "Fantastic. Add it to the list of things I never want to interact with again." Thalira led them toward a cluster of broken pillars that jutted from the ground like the ribs of a buried creature. Ancient circuitry ran along their surfaces, flickering weakly in the pale light. Connor recognized the architecture. It matched the sanctuary's inner chambers, but older, rougher, like a prototype. "This must be it," she said. Connor stepped closer, brushing dust from the nearest pillar. So this is the transport thing? It was once, she said. If the energy conduits still function, we can activate a beacon. It will attract automated pods from the orbital shell. I like automated pods, he said. Pods don't usually try to kill me. Usually, Milo corrected. Before Connor could celebrate this rare moment of optimism, the cliffside behind them trembled. Pebbles skittered across the ground. Thalira's ears tilted sharply. Milo whirred and turned red. Connor stiffened. Please tell me that's an earthquake. It is not an earthquake, Thalira said. Of course not. From the far end of the ravine, figures emerged, sleek, dark, and lethal. Their armor shimmered with distortion fields, making their outlines blur and sharpen with every step. Assassins. At least 6. Maybe more. Connor lifted his hands helplessly. Do these guys ever get tired? No, Thalira said. They are genetically enhanced for endurance. Well, that's just rude. The assassins advanced silently, their blades crackling with dark energy. Connor grabbed a broken shard of ancient metal from the ground. Still not a real weapon, but better than nothing. Milo projected a tiny shield field in front of himself that would likely stop nothing larger than a disgruntled mosquito. Thalira stepped between Connor and the approaching assassins, her stance grounding, blade at the ready. Stay behind me. Connor swallowed hard. That plan always ends with me running and you doing all the work. It is a reliable pattern. The assassins surged forward. Thalira met the first with a flash of silver light, blocking his strike and countering with a swift kick that sent him crashing into a pillar. Connor swung his metal shard at another, who blocked it effortlessly and tilted his head, confused that a human would even try. Connor did the only logical thing. He threw dirt in the assassin's eyes, then punched him in the helmet, hurting only his own hand. Thalira's gaze flicked toward him. Effective, but unnecessary. My entire existence is unnecessary, he shot back. Another assassin lunged at Thalira. She dodged, but another came from behind. Connor reacted on instinct, ramming into the attacker and knocking all 3 of them into a glowing flower patch. The flowers chimed loudly, flashing bright pulses of color. Milo screamed. Neuro-linguistic resonance spike. Retreat. Connor scrambled backward as the flowers emitted a burst of sonic energy that sent the assassins stumbling, their distortion fields flickering violently. Thalira seized the opportunity, striking with precision, disabling 2 before they recovered. But more were coming. Connor looked at the pillars. We need that beacon working now. Thalira jumped back beside him, breathing hard. I will assist. Stand guard. Stand guard? Connor repeated. With what? My optimistic attitude? Still, he turned toward the approaching assassins, gripping his makeshift metal shard like a heroic idiot. Thalira placed both hands on the ancient circuitry. Symbols lit up. Energy surged. The ground trembled. Milo spun. The beacon is activating. Automated pods inbound. Connor's relief was short-lived. The remaining assassins rushed forward with renewed fury. One tackled him to the ground. Connor yelled, flailing wildly. Milo swooped down and zapped the attacker with a weak stun that only made him angry. Thalira pulled the assassin off him and hurled him into a pillar. Connor scrambled up. Thanks, I had him right where I wanted him. You were being strangled. Yes, right where I wanted him. A thunderous roar filled the air. Connor looked up. Descending from the clouds were sleek silver pods, oval-shaped, glowing with soft blue engines. Yes, Connor shouted. Finally something good. The pods hovered above the ravine, opening their side panels like metallic wings. Thalira grabbed Connor's hand. Jump! What? She didn't explain. She didn't need to. She ran, pulling him along, sprinting across the fractured stone toward the nearest pod. The assassins lunged after them. Thalira leaped first, landing inside the pod with fluid grace. Connor followed with significantly less grace, flinging himself into the doorway and rolling across the floor like a startled armadillo. Milo zipped in after them. The pod sealed shut instantly. A heartbeat later, the assassins reached the edge, but the pod shot upward in a blur of blue light, leaving them behind. Connor lay flat on the floor, gasping. Okay, I'm making a rule. No more temples, no more ruins, no more assassins, and absolutely no more teleporting through portals. Thalira knelt beside him, catching her breath as well. We survived. Barely, he said. She touched her hand to the crystalline device at her chest. But we have the proof. With this, the court will have no choice but to believe the truth. He sat up slowly. So this is it. We go to your world. We expose the traitors. We clear your name. Thalira met his gaze, her expression softening with something he couldn't define. We do it together. Connor's heart thumped harder than the pod's engines. Together, he echoed. The pods streaked toward the stars, carrying them to a future neither of them fully understood. But both were now bound to face. The pods sliced through the clouds in a silver arc, leaving Varel 9 shrinking behind them until it was nothing more than a dusty memory. Connor sat upright now, still winded, still bruised, but something in him felt steadier than before. Maybe it was the adrenaline wearing off. Maybe it was the knowledge that he was finally heading toward answers instead of running from questions. Or maybe it was the way Thalira kept glancing at him, not with the wary distance of a princess speaking to a stranger, but with a warmth he wasn't sure how to handle. Milo floated between them, projecting their trajectory. Arrival at the royal homeworld in 12 minutes. I recommend hydration, emotional preparation, and possibly deodorant. Connor rubbed his face. Milo, please don't narrate my hygiene. Thalira hid a smile behind her hand. He is right. You should drink something. Great. Even royalty thinks I smell. I said nothing of smell, she replied calmly. Your hair, however. He touched his head in horror. Don't. I've suffered enough today. But the moment of teasing faded as the pod broke through the upper atmosphere of Thalira's homeworld. The view was breathtaking. Sweeping continents of silver forests, glowing oceans, and hovering cities shaped like crystalline spires piercing the sky. Streams of starships curved between the structures like flowing rivers of light. Connor fell silent, struck by awe. This is incredible, he breathed. Thalira's voice softened. This is what they tried to steal from me. The pod descended toward a grand landing platform where armored guards stood in formation. But instead of raising weapons at the sight of a human stepping out behind their princess, they knelt, saluting with a gesture Connor didn't recognize. The moment Thalira emerged, the air filled with murmurs. Shock, relief, joy. A tall woman in regal armor approached, her long ears adorned with ornate silver cuffs. Her eyes glistened with emotion as she stopped in front of Thalira. Mother, Thalira whispered. Connor blinked. The queen, the actual queen, the mother of the princess he kept almost getting killed beside. He instinctively straightened, tried to look dignified, then tripped on absolutely nothing. Milo gently beeped in embarrassment on his behalf. Thalira steadied him with a quiet laugh. He does that often. The queen studied Connor for a long moment. This is the human who saved you. Yes, Thalira said, and the one who saved me again today. Connor opened his mouth to say something noble, but instead coughed and made a sound that resembled a malfunctioning engine. The queen raised an elegant eyebrow, but there was kindness beneath it. We will speak inside, she said. There is much to resolve. The palace interior was a labyrinth of glowing halls and rising platforms that moved without mechanical noise. Connor followed beside Thalira, while Milo scanned statues and declared them emotionally intimidating. Thalira walked with upright confidence, yet her fingers brushed his briefly, a silent reassurance. In the council chamber, holographic displays lit the room as Thalira placed the crystal device onto the pedestal. The imprinted truth erupted in gleaming trails of light, recordings, evidence, historical data, clearly showing the attempted assassination of a royal child and the conspiracy behind it. The council gasped. The traitorous faction, long whispered about but never proven, was finally revealed. One counselor stood. Princess Thalira, this is irrefutable. With this, the traitors will face judgment. Your claim to the throne is secure. Thalira nodded, but her gaze flicked toward Connor, softening. It is secure because someone risked his life to help me find the truth. The room quieted. The queen stepped closer to Connor. You have done this kingdom a great service. Name your reward. Connor waved his hands. Reward? Oh, no. I don't need anything. I just want a nap. Maybe two. Connor, Thalira said gently, do not diminish what you have done. He met her eyes. For the first time, he didn't see a stranger from another world or a prophecy he'd been dragged into. He saw a person who had trusted him, fought beside him, and looked at him like he mattered. I didn't do it for a reward, he said quietly. I did it because you deserve someone on your side. Thalira's expression warmed, her long ears dipping slightly in a gesture he'd learned meant affection. Then let me ask you this, not as a princess, but as the girl you saved years ago. She took his hand in full view of the council. Will you stay, not as a conscript, not as a soldier, but as someone I trust to walk beside me? Connor swallowed, suddenly aware of how far he'd come, from a tired archaeologist buried in sand to standing in a royal palace beside a woman whose life had been forever tangled with his own. He squeezed her hand. Yeah, he whispered. Yeah, I'll stay. Milo emitted a cheerful tone. I fully support this decision. Also, this planet has excellent Wi-Fi. The council members bowed. The Queen nodded with solemn approval. Later, as the palace quieted, Connor and Thalira stepped out onto a balcony overlooking the glowing capital. He leaned on the railing, letting the wind carry the scent of alien forests. Thalira stood beside him, close enough for their shoulders to brush. Hard to believe, he said softly, that a few days ago I was arguing with Milo about sand. She smiled. And now you have become part of something larger than either of us. He looked at her. I don't know what will happen next, but I'm not running anymore. Her eyes brightened. Nor am I. She rested her head lightly against his shoulder.